So the time is 6 o'clock, so we will start tonight's agenda for the city council study session. So first up is a discussion regarding the Indianola Wellness Campus. So Heather, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. First, I'd like to say thank you to all the familiar faces that are here. I see both staff and members. I greatly appreciate you being here, appreciate your support. And I also want to thank council for the study session tonight. I know you're very busy. You've had a lot of meetings and I requested special time. So thank you for granting that. The purpose of the study session is to inform you of key challenges, considerations, and planned changes for the IWC, to align our understanding of the IWC goals, to avoid confusion and reach consensus on next steps and direction, to seek clarity for planning, operating, managing, budgeting short and long term, and to collaborate with shared understanding and agreement to effectively address these issues. What we will go over are the major topics of focus this study session are unfinished business from the transition over to the city, staffing pay and structure, swim team transition, revenue generators and maintenance issues, and IWC Board of Trustees. I do not have a presentation to give you. I don't have a slideshow. I was really hoping more for a discussion. I want to have an opportunity to just share information. Feel free to just ask questions. I don't anticipate my portion to take a whole lot of time. So we do have time for questions. I know I have as much information with me that I could put in this notebook for some of your questions, but maybe will require another study session or follow-up emails. The list that we've been working off is a lot shorter than it used to be. I shared all that I'm going to share with you tonight with Ben over the last 18 months. And maybe some things a little bit before that. As soon as we found out the transition may happen, there were identified very early some issues that are still lingering. I requested a study session to open dialogue and provide an opportunity to realign our focus to what matters most. The topics we are covering are also to provide more information regarding the top 3 revenue and top 3 expense issues shared in my budget presentation. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to open these lines of communication. Since my team is here, a lot of my team is here, I want to formally and publicly thank you for all that you're doing. I do see some former Board of Trustees here, but I would also like to thank all of them, whether they're here or not, for their efforts of continuous improvement that we had been able to make gradually and methodically. I want to set the stage to where we are right now. The IWC is dedicated to the mission of the IWC. Staff have been patient, but have grown weary and are frustrated. The burnout is a reality of our circumstance. What we do well, staff and members have been loyal and committed. Where we have found success in the past is by focusing on the members, knowing the value and the impact we provide members and for the community. While that provides purpose and meaning, my team and I are feeling undervalued and stuck despite of working hard. What our competitive advantages are that we have a caring, committed, and knowledgeable staff. We have a beautiful and spacious facility. We have the indoor year-round pool, and we have a learn and play offering that's unique to fitness centers. Anybody have any questions about anything I've said so far?
I mean, if this is a dialogue, yeah, sure. So
Sure.
You said your staff is feeling undervalued?
Yeah.
Why?
I'm going to go into a little bit further, but we, just to answer it directly right now, the staff team our wages were held. We had done evaluations before we transitioned over to the city under the YMCA, and we asked to hold them during the transition. As soon as we did transition, we completed a compensation a study on compensation and grade. I did not really get the full picture of that information. We went through a lot of work to do it. It was paid for. I mean, the staff had invested quite a bit of time on it, and nothing really has been done. And just for a quick reference, when we've moved over to the city, this like membership is transitioned over, but our staff team hasn't. Simply because of that, it does have a huge budget implication to it. But at some point in time, it needs to be addressed. We're almost 2 years over, and not just for an example, there is a current position posted for the deputy position for the library. That position is paid higher than what I'm currently paid. And we haven't started to even discuss, like, how do we start moving into the city? Obviously, we're not going to be able to do that in one sweep or anything like that, but there does need to be a discussion made about how we even begin that process.
Who has that information, Heather, as far as the staffing, salary numbers?
I believe HR.
HR has it, okay.
Any other question? Okay. What we would like to see is collaboration, understanding, and support, positive momentum and traction on the identified key issues and challenges. We do need established guidelines and clarity for direction, communication and transparency, funding commitment for the salary and the building needs that we are facing. The most important priority moving forward is to be in alignment and fully integrated in the city. We still feel like we're very much a separate entity. What do we need to focus on to achieve our vision? I'm sorry, I already read that. So threats and risk identification, what's going to stand in our way? These are real concerns for us. I had started to talk about the salaries just a little bit here when answering Ron's question. But just my bullet points are, we are a city department in a city building, and staff are not being acknowledged as such from our view standpoint. The compensation study was conducted. We have been a part of the city for 1.5 years. We will hit 2 years in July. I'm going to take the me moment and just identify that, you know, that's for me, I'm concerned, but I'm mainly concerned for my staff. My leadership team is putting in a lot of work. I mean, even coming through the transition was difficult. And everybody has a pretty heavy workload. We all have more responsibilities than we did before. We are understaffed. I know everybody looks at the numbers of the staffing that we have. I know we doubled the city staff, the 100, but most of those positions are part-time positions. And departmentally, like each one of them kind of has a different need. Lifeguards, you know, oftentimes that's high school kids, college kids. Their availability is very limited. Most of them are in other activities. We get to utilize them more, of course, during the summer. But I know it was mentioned, a question came up about the full-time lifeguard position that we have posted. Unfortunately, we really lost a great full-time lifeguard who's moving out of state. That position is really important. Even under the YMCA, we have had that for quite a while. It's difficult to find people that are available to work between the hours of 8 and 4 consistently. We do have a lot of water X classes that happen in the morning time. And then, of course, we have competition swim practice with Simpson College in the afternoon. So our aquatics director should not be on the guard stand. In fact, I limit her number of hours on the guard stand. She has other responsibilities to do, and she's an expensive lifeguard. So it's better to make sure that that position is filled by an actual lifeguard. So that's why we have the full-time lifeguard position. But otherwise, they're all part-time and work minimal hours. Our member service team, that's a position that we would like to transition to full-time. I've been working with and thankful for Courtney and Stacy's help in trying to figure out what the equivalency of how many part-time staff we would need to start looking at to transition that to, you know, 1, possibly 2 full-time staff. There is a large cost that's is tied to bringing staff on because of the low pay rate. We're having difficulty retaining and recruiting people, maybe not so much the recruiting part, we're getting people on in member services, but they don't stay long. That's a new problem that we are seeing. Previously, member service staff stayed on longer. We do have some long-term staff that have always been there, but recently we are seeing a lot of short-term, and it's because either they're finding a higher paying job or they're finding full-time employment. So they're, just kind of staying on with us just to get them through. Learn and play area, again, it's limited hours, limited operating hours. It's typically held by either a college student or a young adult mom hours and stuff like that. But member service is the one that we can really change. When we transitioned over, there were 7 positions that were absorbed into other positions. So the intention was, like I said, not to necessarily absorb and keep all that work. The work was identified who was going to be taking that responsibility on to get us over in the 3-month short time frame. But we do need to make a structure change to that, and we can do that. However, that also will require more full-time staff. So not only is our staffing not integrated into the city, but now we also need additional staff. So it's an issue, and we just need to figure out how we're going to start addressing.
Heather, when you mentioned fully integrate into the city, what specifically are you talking about? That the integrate in the pay scale, or are you talking about integrate in benefits, or what are we talking about?
Integrated into the pay scale.
Mhm.
And there still does seem to be this mindset, or and maybe it's just a perceived takeaway that the messaging still seems to be surrounding around bailing out the IWC. It was, the city swooped in and bailed out the YMCA, which we greatly appreciate that we're under the city. However, this building was the result of a bond issue in 2011. The city committed to. The city owns the building. The maintenance issues that we are having, according to the 2080 agreement that was established, were responsibility of the city. Unfortunately, the YMCA in that agreement did not handle all those things because repairs were responsibility of the Y. Replacement was responsibility of the city. And those, the building's getting old. We really have aging equipment, stuff like that. What I think is concerning to me is when working with the Board of Trustees, and even now, there seems to be a lot of pointing to the trustees or pointing to me. And this is really a city issue. It's not just me. So I'm asking for full integration, meaning everybody coming to the table, work together to resolve these issues. There are solutions, but without having all the information and without having decision-making power or understanding of what allowable funding that we have, or our parameters, our guidelines, clear direction, it's very difficult for us to navigate. In working with the trustees in the last year, we were working on all the things that we know. We have an identifiable list, and we've been knocking those things out. However, we still we can't move the needle because we barely have enough to keep what we're doing going. And there's a burnout, and we have more members. And in order to make more money, we're probably going to have to spend some money. And that's not something that I can say, tell you the things that we need. I also don't have a ton of time to dive into everything and, without having clear direction of what the parameters are and what the priorities are.
Just so I can make sure I'm clear on the one part of this as we move forward, like to Councilor Richardson's question. So all the benefits are lined up with the city. It's the pay scale. they
The
feel
full-time.
is off.
Yeah.
But they get like this, the same insurance benefits, all that stuff, correct?
We have 4 full-time people. Right now, we have 3, but yes,
Okay,
those are yes, full-time benefits.
I'm slow.
No, you're
Make sure I
good.
Keep it up.
No, thank you for clarifying. But yeah, no, that part we are.
So if that's the part you are, then what are you not fully integrated into? Then I guess that's the other question. Or are you not, am I misunderstanding here? Or you said you are fully integrated with staff. It's just the pay scale you're not integrated into? Is that what
The
I'm
pay
hearing?
scale, and I am also concerned with the perception that we're still an outsider.
I think we need to be candid here. What perception of what, I guess? I mean, I don't have that perception. Is it perception
Okay.
from other city staff? I mean, who's giving you this perception that the IWC is not a city entity?
There has been some. I want to be careful in my wording. There have definitely been some experiences where, under the transition and when Power Wellness was on the table, we didn't know that Power Wellness was something that was going to be done. We embraced it, and then when it was happening, afterwards, we found out that we were, there was a lot of maintenance things that weren't being taken care of, and there were just issues that were on hold. We were definitely put on hold. And now that we are in this position where we know Power Wellness is off the table, I feel like we've lost time. I feel we've lost a little bit of traction and a lot of understanding. Nobody seems to really understand the operations, but I'm not getting the picture that there is a lot of interest in making that happen. The fact that I have asked for the 2080 agreement to be updated for well over a year, and that's not new information. I mean, that's something that we had talked about for quite a long time. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's anybody's I'm not saying that it was anybody's fault. It's just these things exist. And I'm not trying to like point fingers or.
You're talking about 20 AE with the Simpson in the high school as far as
The 2080 agreement is something that should have been addressed a long time ago. We were waiting on the 501c3 status. That should have been done a long time ago. And, now here we are 18 months later, and the messaging that I'm getting is, go ahead and do that. You do that. You and your team do that. We already absorbed a lot of positions. There doesn't seem to be an understanding that what we're doing is unsustainable. And I've said it, but I'm not saying it clearly, or I'm not saying it the right way.
So Heather,
Yeah.
I have kind of 3 big questions, and you've kind of talked about 2 of them. What do we need to do to help you get the 28E agreements redone? Like, who does Ron need to send like a sternly worded email to?
I love it. Thank you. I emailed Doug Fulton last week, and I'm just pending information. From what I understand in conversations with Ben is, I believe, and I think you were in that meeting too, I think that we have to ask them first. I think we have to ask the partners first if they're interested in revisiting and revising, reviewing. They have to approve doing that, from my understanding. I'm still waiting on Doug on that. We have a long list, not only, there's financial things. So we've done a lot of talking about the 2080 agreement, and this does need to be revised. It's not the golden ticket. Like, it's not going to resolve our answers. I sent you the report in October sharing all the direct and indirect costs aligned with the competitive swim teams. Obviously, they're not going to pay those dollars. The partners paid the $750,000 up front in the brick and mortar of the building. However, there are serious building needs. There are expenses that are heavy expenses that are tied to that. That agreement was great, and the TIF bonding was wonderful, tying it to the competition swimming. helped it get passed. But bottom line is now that is all on the IWC's budget, all of it. The maintenance, the competitive swimming, the lifeguards. We can't even afford ourselves, let alone pay for the competition swim teams also.
So do you have a number that, of the cost each year of what that particular section is, and so that needs to be shared 3 ways or at least 2 ways, or however we do that?
In that report that I sent you in October, it definitely shares the dollar amount. I think that if I, number one, I don't even know if I'm the one that really should be taking that to and I think that, I don't know if we wait till we have a city manager in place or who, like, I definitely can provide input. I can be part of the process, but I am not that process. I can definitely be involved in making recommendations for the 2080 agreement. If we showed them those numbers, obviously we can show there's definitely a need for it. There's definitely the expenses, but they won't pay those dollars that,
They won't,
I mean.
ask them, that's for sure.
Well, we
Yeah,
can definitely ask, and I will say this, in all the years that I have been working with them in our in our steering committee meetings and stuff like this, they have said that they want to help. They all have said that they want to be a part of fixing what needs to be fixed. My thought is, and when I put information in for the capital improvement plan regarding the competition swim teams, that we let them know just the expenses that are tied specifically to the competition swim equipment. The stuff that they use that is not used by membership that at the IWC we wouldn't have otherwise. And so I think that that's a great starting point. And then there is just some new things as far as being under the city. Under the YMCA, it was required that we had to have a lifeguard on the stand for competition swim practices for the partners. And under the city, there is no city code. There's no state code. However, with that, there is a requirement that their coaches be lifeguard certified, which their coaches are not currently lifeguard certified, but that's something that we can ask them to, to obviously maybe meet us halfway on. There had been discussion at one point in time where they would provide the lifeguard pay for their comp. There's lots of different options. I know that we can get to, and I'm sure that they would be willing to come to the table to talk, but I'm happy to provide input, happy to provide recommendations for that. I don't think that that's obviously my role to negotiate that, but I obviously want to be a part of it.
So that's the question I want to get to, if you don't mind, before we get too far off, because I do want
Sure.
to talk about the dollars, but like, whose responsibility is this then,
Right.
right?
I mean, I've been asking for it since I've been the executive director in 2019. And
You're understanding that it should be the city manager negotiating these for you?
I don't know. I mean, all I know is I was told that it was not my responsibility. And then until all of a sudden here, all in the last 3 months, it is mine. And I'm happy to do whatever part I need to do. But yes, that is what we need to figure out. Who does that?
So if I'm understanding correctly, and I'm not, but when I'm hearing you talk about the situation, it sounds like you feel like you're kind of like on an island out here by yourself, where
Yeah.
you have no clear direction as to who you need to work with directly within the city to get these things accomplished.
There's a lot of, well, you can take care of that. What do you need? But in the end, I can only take things so far.
Right.
I don't believe that it is my role to negotiate the 2080 agreement. I'm happy to provide input and supply the information needed to whoever needs it. I can work on the document, but
To me, it sounds like a structuring issue with staff, like who does Heather report to for these things to get them taken care of? I don't know if that's something you guys can look into. It sounds like previously you kind of just reported to Ben
I
on these.
reported to Ben, and then when Ben changed the structure and put chiefs in place, I am now under Doug.
Finally, okay.
Which when that happened, like there was still not clarity. I don't know that Doug and I actually even understand how we're supposed to be working together. You know, I've shared that there is, you know,
That kind of leads me to another question I would have then, maybe for you and Doug both, but
okay,
you were talking about lifeguards. So I
Yes.
know the city has lifeguards through the pool.
yes.
Is there not maybe an opportunity where some of these lifeguards may be able to work both locations? I mean, because I
Yeah.
know right now, like to work at either one, they have to apply separately, but they're both employed
Yeah,
technically by the city when they get hired. So to me, I mean, that right there is a waste of resources of going through an interview process twice for working for the same
Yeah. There-
entity, so to speak.
that's a really good example of something that like we're getting through it. I would say the process is not efficient. It's not effective, but we found this like quick fix to, again, get us into the city. But it's not, to me, it's not working the way it should be. I don't feel that the transition has been a success. While from a membership standpoint, members don't see these things, the behind the scenes stuff that is going on. You know, and I mean, I like processes and efficiency and we all should be working toward that, but sometimes obviously it's hard. One of the difficult things that, you know, and it's not a lack of nobody trying, I just don't think that we've actually sat down and like cleaned up the process, like really looked at it and said, okay, what's working, what's not working? How can we fix this? How can we work together? How can we collaborate?
Who do you need
Um,
to sit down with? Excuse me for interrupting, but that becomes the question then too. Kind of to Christine's point.
Well, what we find is when we do those things, like sometimes this is the way we do it. And there is an expectation that the IWC just kind of rolls into that. And then with the lifeguards, you know, a challenge is the outdoor pool is just seasonal staff. And so staff can either be seasonal or they can be part-time or at the IWC, we have what is it? Benefited part-time and unbenefited part-time. On top of the benefited part-time and the unbenefited part-time, there's two different types of benefited. There's benefited meeting IPERS requirements and benefited meeting city requirements. So there's been processes put in place over the last 18 months, but it took a long time to even like figure those things out. I feel like there's been great positive changes and action toward there. I don't think that we're still there, but from the lifeguard standpoint, you know, if they work at the outdoor pool, they do get a bump in pay if they return the next year. We haven't even integrated the IWC staff into the city comp and grade. So as a lifeguard continues to come back to the outdoor pool, and if they apply and then, you know, both Afton and Casey approve their working for the other department in the other season, then their pay is still off.
The job description of both positions are essentially the same.
Essentially the same. It's very different. Like obviously, you know, at the outdoor pool, it's swarming with kids. You can't see the bottom of the pool. There's a lot going on. At the IWC, you know, we have times of high activity. We have group exercise classes that go on. So there are different, yeah, and there's different, the pools operate differently. The chemicals and all those types of requirements are different. I know that there is a difference in the actual structure that we have. There's Casey and all the lifeguards report to Casey. And I believe Afton has pool managers and other things in place for the outdoor pool. So our structures are a little bit different as well.
Different certifications that are required.
I think they all have the same certification, I believe.
So essentially, I mean, could maybe,
Doug can correct me if I'm wrong on what I'm saying. I can answer for the IWC, but I can't answer for the outdoor pool.
I I mean, is this something that maybe you and Doug could maybe get together with Wade on and maybe look at some of these things to try and come up with a way to integrate them a little bit better?
I think that would be great. I mean, it's been on a list of things that I've been talking with Ben about like the whole time. So,
Seems like an opportunity for some streamlining.
So can I back to the 28E question, if that's okay? Not that I
yes.
respect the discussion, but I feel like we're getting really far in the weeds. And
I wanted to
it
go
sound
back
like-
to, so
It
thank you.
does sound like it's something that you and Doug need to work out, right? If you report up to Doug, how to better do this stuff. Who's responsible for the 28E? Like, this is the thing that's come up over and over again. And like, it keeps being, if the hot potato passed, right? So, and Wade, you might be the closest thing we have to an attorney here tonight. Congratulations, sitting over there. You've said very little, so I feel like it's time to drag you in. Like, in your experience, or who should be, if it's not Heather as the director of the wellness campus to do this, whose job is it to take this on and do it so we can stop talking about it? It's not gonna solve all of it, but I don't know that the discussion tonight is about paper cuts, right? It's about big things that we need to fix and start moving those, and the little ones will come with it. So the 28E, how do we fix it, Wade?
He and the attorney.
Okay.
We wait for the Doug Fulton response and
Well, we need to follow
I think
up on it
where
to get
I'm-
a response.
So my follow-up to this is,
I'll make sure Doug and Heather are in the room when I call.
yeah, if we're talking about, I mean, ultimately, here tonight to figure out how to move everyone forward here, right? And it is tough because ultimately it's always a little different. Your setup is a little different. It's a membership based, right, within the city. And so there's always gonna be some awkward separation that I don't think it's bad. I just think we
No.
have to accept it and move forward. Like, you can't. It's just an inherent reality of it. But I think what we need to hear and understand is what are the big things
Yeah.
that we need to help you move so that we stop losing money,
yes,
right? So is
that's
What are
what
the-
we want to.
yeah, like what are the big three? Like, let's start there. Like, let's keep it really simple. So I assume the 28E is one of the
Yes.
big three,
Right.
right? 'Cause we've
I will
talked
say
about it a
this.
lot.
So when Wade and I start working on the 28 agreement, one of the things that concerned me when I have looked in it is what don't I know about what is going on outside of the IWC in regards to Simpson? At one point in time, I know I intercepted an email of there was discussion about pickleball courts and different things working with Simpson. And is there any sensitivity to, are they separate, or is this a one? You take them as a one-off, or is there any other things that are collectively working with Simpson that need to be taken into consideration?
I think it'd be, like, we can't look at it that it won't it will create ripples of some sort,
Okay.
right? There's always interactions with all these different entities. So like, you can't deal with this in a vacuum from the rest, which is
Okay.
probably why it makes sense that you should be working with,
Somebody,
well, I would assume that Doug should be in the conversation as well on this, right? If I understand our org chart. Right? You and Doug should be working with the other Doug. And
You
wait,
also have a steering committee you mentioned to me. And the steering committee, correct me if I'm wrong, you said was the AD of school system.
I will correct you.
Okay, correct.
So the steering committee was tied to the 2080 agreement.
Mhm.
There was representation from the YMCA
Mhm.
and representation from the city.
Okay,
Doug has always served on the committee, and then there has always been a council member. Ron was the last serving council member when the transition happened. And then I did always invite the ADs after I was in the position because I felt like we needed to loop them in.
right.
They needed to be a real big part of the conversation because every time we start competition swim season,
Sure.
I need to connect with them. And so it was just easier to have them part of those meetings and loop them in on what is happening.
So then we're really back to where, just what Josh is talking about then. It sounds like you got the basis, if I'm not mistaken here, and I can hear already that Wade and Doug and you and Doug Fulton probably need to sit down in a room or get together and have a long conversation about that 2080 agreement and start getting some.
Yes.
in. The thing you mentioned here earlier about getting a new city manager, I don't think we can wait on that, Heather. I really don't think that's just my opinion.
I don't want to wait anymore.
Yeah, I know. Well, Jackie gave us a calendar here. And we're gonna be lucky, frankly, honestly, to have a city manager by June
Okay.
on board. And so then you've only got another 29 days to the end of the fiscal year. And so I really think that from my perspective, and you and I have had this conversation,
Yeah.
I really think that we need to help you find a way to get this stuff off the ground already. So you can create that 501(c)(3). You can have your fundraiser and the money goes into that 501(c). You've already started collecting sales tax on the fees, and that's gonna reduce your deficit about 80,000. And I've had this conversation with most of your board, your former board, and I think those are some good steps in the right direction. I think the other thing that probably, if I heard everybody a little bit correctly here, you get the people integrated into the system, but at the same time with Wade and you, in the meantime, until we get a city manager and Doug, put a 3-year plan together that really gets you some of the equipment you need, gets some of the fixes you need, but at the same time starts addressing the deficit that's there. And I think, I don't want to speak for the rest of them, but having conversations with most of these people in an open meeting and on different calls, I get the feeling that is kind of our critical component right now, is that we get that deficit down in a period of time, whether it's 3 or 5 years, but we work hard on that and get that done. So however we kind of get to that point, and I'm committed to helping you get to that point, and whatever we can do to do that. And it sounds like right now, the start is a meeting with you folks and Doug Fulton.
That's good. You asked about the steering committee. The
Yeah.
steering committee provided great value. We can definitely build something into, while it won't look like what it did before, there's definitely representation that can be pulled and need to be pulled to doing that. So I just wanted to address that we'll be adding that into their
I
back.
think that's great. I think you need to do that.
So question 2.
Sure.
I had 3.
Okay.
I got us down the 2080 rabbit hole. Which, some people have kind of touched on the 501(c)(3).
Yes.
Like, what support do we need to get that going, and however you guys need it set up?
Okay.
Is that added to the Wade, Doug Fulton conversation?
I think that needs to be a conversation for sure. In the meantime, we need to do something because we do have members that have expressed interest. Anyway, I have sent an email and had communications back with Doug and with Todd Kilkoff to pursue at least the temporary, what I would consider, I don't know if it's the long-term goal, and working with the board of trustees. They really wanted us to establish our own separate 501(c)(3). But right now we can at least start working with the Friends of. So I have a meeting with Todd Kilkoff, the speaker next week, to at least get that process started. But yes, then I don't know what all is required in order for us to do that. I know Ben said that he was going to take care of that, and I just haven't had an opportunity to look into it. Right now, I'm working on what I can do right now to establish something to get going, but.
Okay.
What are the long-term benefits of, because you said you can utilize the Friends. Don't we have one under like the Parks Department as well? Like, what is the benefit of establishing our own?
That's the question that's what I need to find
Like,
out. I don't know enough
People can
about.
donate to the Parks one right
Maybe
now,
Doug
and you're
can
marketing
answer
to
that.
the wellness campus, I would assume. I
Uh-huh.
hate to assume things.
That was actually gonna be my.
Rarely works out for me.
Doug, can you do that?
The Indianola Community Foundation is already established and already performs these functions for keeping Indianola beautiful, Relight, Park Friends, separate from the city. It's already ready to go, like you said.
Mhm.
Meeting with Todd.
Within that 501,
It's already
can
ready.
you can segment which
Absolutely.
funds go where, so.
We have Buxton Park Endowment, we have the Duckworth Endowment. They're already set up, completely separate. But was here. Where did Chris go? There she is. Chris is the treasurer, so she's the one that keeps all those things separate right now.
So really all you'd have to do is just set up a separate fund and people can start donating tomorrow.
Go to a meeting on Wednesday and they say yes. Because we have the meeting Wednesday.
To me, I think that would save money in the long term.
Yes.
I mean,
And it's something we need to just get going.
yeah.
Right.
And, you know, long term, I don't see why it wouldn't work. I mean, it works for so many of our other funds that we do through that same thing. So
Sure.
to me, you know, why put extra resources?
Right.
You know, to me, I see the wellness center as an extension of Park and Rec in the
Yes.
future. So,
The Community Foundation is not Parks and Rec Foundation. It's the Community Foundation.
right,
We're just,
part of
we
it.
just, they invest all their funds in the Greater Des Moines Community Foundation.
So then that makes even more sense because it's just another branch of our city.
I know the answer to this, but I'm asking for the benefit of the public. Do they dictate at all how funds are spent?
Yeah,
Once they're,
Each of those groups have a board member on the Indianola Community Foundation, which staff are none of the board members. That's all those specific groups. And then there's other members that are elected. Again, they're not dictated by how they're spending their funds. And then each of those organizations, like if we go to Park Friends, we have to ask Park Friends, can we put money towards the Buxton Endowment or the gazebo or things like that? And then they both vote on that to release those funds to reimburse.
has there ever been a time when the board has rejected an expense?
I'm not aware of any, but
So you said you can have this done next Wednesday, right? That's what I heard you
Wednesday,
say.
2 days.
Perfect. Problem solved.
And it saves the $600,
Needs to be there for.
$600 application fee to just apply,
Mhm.
not to mention the amount of time that it takes
Like
to
legal
establish.
expenses.
Yes, yeah.
That'll
I know when we
help.
transitioned over, the Board of Trustees felt really strongly about establishing, but I think in the circumstances that we are, we need to recognize we need to do something. And I'm not gonna die on that hill, so we've started that process and started the communications and we'll do our part.
Sounds like Wednesday then, might have them ready.
Yes, I do want to ask you though, Christina, I want to ask a question. You just said that in the future you see the IWC being an extension of the Parks and Rec. And to me, that is a, like this on kind of said, I'm not quite there yet, but because you said it, there's just like an unspoken, like, how are we supposed to be working together? So if there has been discussion amongst and maybe that's just yours and maybe you haven't spoken together, but how do you see the IWC fitting into the structure? Should we, working differently with Parks and Rec? There are inefficiencies that we know that can be addressed, and what's the expectation there?
I mean, for me personally, I think, that's just my personal statement. I've made mention to other council members, but
Yeah.
It's not anything that we've gone into great lengths about.
Sure.
And I don't know how they each feel about it, but for me personally, I think it is something that should be done. I think there's a lot of overlapping, duplication of jobs. There's a lot of things that could be addressed by combining the two departments. And essentially, I mean, you're a department, not just, a separate entity. So
I think anytime we can look at efficiencies and processes or sharing of duties amongst our staff to gain those efficiencies, we should be doing that. And especially when you have people who are doing the same job for two different departments.
I think it's gonna have to be well thought out and well done. I mean,
Sure.
you're gonna have to have, and there's gonna have to be time taken to do that, and we're not to that point in the immediate future. Right now, that I think the focus from my perspective is, as I mentioned, let's find a way to get you the things you need right now to be successful and set you up for success. And once we get down that path, then we can look at other things, but that's gonna have to include Park and Rec, that's gonna have to include some council members on that group, it's gonna have to include city manager and your staff or some of your folks as well, and maybe a steering committee or whatever, but then you can all sit down and look at what you duplicate, what you don't, when can you get efficiencies, and I've had that conversation that we're looking at everything on the table this year. It's just, the funding is just not there. We're looking at everything we can and possibly can, and I guess that's kind of my sense of urgency to you is we really need to find ways as much as possible to reduce your deficit so that it's not going to impact your functions as much as it could in the future. So, I just think that we just need to get this taken care of, and then we can move to that step of what kind of things can we share? What kinds of things should we not share? How are we going to be different? And those are okay. I mean, you still can have a department, but you can have separate functions within that department and still make it work. You just don't want to duplicate things.
Right.
I think is that what I'm kind of hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of the things that Heather's touched on are things that essentially may be partially resolved.
Yeah.
By doing that. So I think it's something that Doug, Heather, Wade, and Fulton should all discuss.
By the Dougs or?
Yeah. And have a true discussion, because I think not only would combining the two, I mean, you guys have great followings under both. And to me, I look at, both of them and I go, they could be one super thing under one entity. So why not integrate as much as possible and not only drive numbers up for Park and Rec activity, but drive numbers up for your wellness center as well? I mean, there's so many things that could be benefited by both groups that, to me, my opinion is, sure, it's something that should be considered. But you guys are the ones that run the departments. So ultimately, I mean, you guys should have that conversation, I feel, and have Wade and Doug Fulton as part of that conversation too, to see what it would take that may resolve some of the issues.
You guys want to add on that aspect?
I've never worked for Park and Recs. I've never worked for IWC. So honestly, for me to come up here and say, sure, you guys have jobs that intertwine, I don't think it's fair to come out of my mouth because I don't know. I've never walked in your shoes, right? So honestly, I mean, I don't know if you and Doug have like one-on-one meetings, but I think that's probably something like where I work, we have one-on-ones, right? So my supervisor and I can get together and we can collaborate as far as creating efficiencies within our department and our processes. I think maybe that's something you and Doug should get together and talk about those efficiencies, because you guys are the ones running those departments. I'm just a guy who sits up here twice a month. So that's just my personal thought on it. I don't walk in your shoes. So I don't think it's fair for me to say, yeah, great, find some efficiencies, right? Because I don't know what those efficiencies would be personally.
You should give yourself credit. You've been up here a lot more than twice a month lately.
That's true. Well, and the reason I had asked about that also too was because when we had the Board of Trustees, we were asked to put into the responsibilities that there would be representation of the trustees going to the Parks and Rec Commission, which they had. Our Board of Trustees were going, there wasn't Parks and Rec representation at ours. When the Board of Trustees went, they felt like they were somewhat attacked when IWC conversations came up. And so that also plays into the, like, where it just feels like there's a division or a not understanding and a not working together. And I'm not pointing fingers. I'm simply addressing concerns that are high level concerns that have to end, so we can start working together. And I don't really know, before we rebuild the Board of Trustees, do the Board of Trustees need to show at Park and Rec, or is it a combined? Should we be looking at that? And maybe you don't have the answers for that tonight, and I'm not looking for that tonight, but I am at some point needing direction and needing understanding, so I know how to work with my Board of Trustees when they are back.
Goes back to Ron's point that we don't walk in the shoes, but at the same time, I think you can get collaboration between Wyland and figure out how that all is going to work. I think that's something that I don't have a lot of contact with the Park and Rec Commission, so I really don't know what's happened in those situations. But I would just say that again, it goes back to breaking down that silo, talking, having that conversation, be very frank and blunt, both of you, and figure out how you're gonna do it. To me, that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say like to share my feelings on it all. I'm running behind everybody tonight. I apologize. Aren't we a couple years from like, we're restricted by some of our interactions by bond, right? So like, it's not like we can say it's a Parks and Rec thing tomorrow fully because it's a membership based setup for years yet, right? So like, for now, that's the hurdle that we have to cross. And I appreciate the long-term vision, right? But I was trying to find, I have one of these papers that Jackie gave me and I can't read tonight. However many years is left. I mean, that's the first hurdle, right? For the next certain number of years, to the point of being together.
One is July 27 and one's payable July 28.
28.
Yeah.
But I also don't think
Does
legal has ever actually stated whether the two could actually commingle.
Sure. So right now, though, like if we're just being, to finish the one point real quick, it really just sounds like you and Doug need to have some one-on-ones. Like we've done the integrating so far, like you're under Doug, we have staff, like you guys got to figure it out. Staff will follow you too, and we'll go from there. That's very simple for me to say standing here. I understand that. Happy to chat more offline or whatever. Or make Wade talk. I don't know. I know it's simple. I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but I don't want it to beat a dead horse. Just, I agree. As far as this, maybe legal says we can do something sooner, but right now, I mean, my heart is this. When I've spent a lot of time talking about the wellness campus the last few weeks, getting ready for this, talking to people, and people who go to the wellness campus love the wellness campus.
Yep.
People who don't go to the wellness campus wonder why they pay with their tax dollars for the wellness. Right? And so it's a thing that we have to figure out. We mentioned earlier, we're in a tough budget season. Before it's tough, but it's not insurmountable. So we have to figure that out. And I don't know that right now with everything in front of us, we're going to suddenly figure out how to make that deficit even bigger by making it fully Parks and Rec and not a membership based system, right? I think we have an opportunity in front of us right now to empower, hopefully Heather and her team, close that gap, make it take care of itself. Let's get it healthy, and then let's worry about the next phase. That's my part for this discussion.
But part of that is I need some of that information in what the long-term goal is in order to.
My long-term goal is to
Work.
make it sustainable on its own. Like that's the
Right.
first long-term goal. Steve
Exactly.
said 3 to 5 years. I need someone to say,
Right, but I can tell
if we
you.
as council do this over the next 3 years and empower you, give you this money to buy equipment, this is the one key staff member that we're missing. Like, and here's how we get to solvency in 3 years. I'm on
We
board.
can't do that with memberships alone. Can't do that in
agree.
programming alone. The equipment still needs to be addressed, and we have
Sure.
big facility things that needs to be taken care of. We're not gonna be able to do that on our own. I can't stand up here and say, I'm gonna deliver you a 3-year plan to get us in the black, because membership cannot solve these problems. We can, there's a lot of things that we can do, and I'm not saying there is not a solution. There is a solution, but it's gonna require more than saying, Heather, create a plan.
Maybe I missed something there, but I guess I've been thinking all along, Heather, that it's you and Doug Byland and Wade and, you know, if you need a council member on there, that's fine. I know Ron's part of that group as well, but the idea is it's not all on you. I mean, I think it's a plan that you all come up with. Figure out, you know, you do need some equipment, you need some repairs, you need some equipment, those kinds of things.
Yes.
I do believe that, I think if we get this 501(c) set up quickly, you can do fundraisers for equipment, you can do fundraisers for other things. I mean, or you can just do one big fundraiser and then designate that money wherever you go, right? But I think you're all very smart people and a lot smarter than I am in a lot of cases, but you just need to, I just personally, and back to Josh's point, just get down, sit down together and figure out how you're gonna get it. I said 3 years, but I said 3 to 5 too. So I mean, I really think to that point, and to your point about when these things play out, I thought it was 28, 2028 and 2032. There's still a bond out there for 2032. So, but we're in budget year 26 is what we're coming into, right? So if we did a 5-year plan, you're 2031, and the next year that's gonna come off and you've got some other options. So I really do think there's some real good opportunities here. I don't want to look at the negative side. I think there's some great opportunities here. And you
Yes.
folks can all sit
There
down.
definitely is.
And I really think that it's not insurmountable in any way, shape, or form. I know some of the equipment's getting old. I get all of that. But I also know that you've got some immediate repairs you need to make. And maybe that's where you get the 28E agreement together and you figure out, hey, you know, we gotta fix the diving board. We gotta fix these other things that are out there. We've got some maintenance on the pool that's gotta take place. And by golly, we don't use it as much as the Indianola School District does in Simpson College. And so it should be a little bit more on them. And you take a little bit of a tough stance sometimes. I think we can do that. And so, yeah, they gave us a lot of money up front, but that credit card ran out a long time ago,
Right.
you know?
Sure.
And so I just think, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, and I'm starting to already, but I just think you've got 3 of you that are very intelligent, come from different backgrounds, and you can figure it out and then get Doug Bolton going on the 28 or on the 28E agreements. Get your 501(c)(3) set up, and I think you're off and running to a start. There's gonna be a lot of things that still come up. I mean, Wade's gonna have to work with HR and make sure you guys sit down with HR and figure it out and have another meeting with Doug and you and Wade and Courtney, figure it all out and go that direction. But I don't, again, I'm not putting it all on you.
No.
I just think that we can get there. We can get there together.
One thing that I do want, or is there any more questions? Did you get your third?
No, he's still
Sorry,
waiting.
go ahead. Go ahead.
So, and why I brought up the 513C is, I know that's been kind of one of the things like the 2080s that keep coming up, and I don't want you back here in like May going,
Right.
still hasn't happened, so just want to make sure that we are like, get this clear plan in place on getting it going for you guys so that you can do the fundraising. My third question, you kind of touched on, I know you've talked about trying to figure out how to consolidate maybe some part-time positions into that full-time staff. You know, either creating a wash or, you know, maybe even positive for the budget.
Yeah, it would.
Are you getting the support that's needed there now to
Yes,
get that ball
Yeah.
rolling?
Oh, absolutely. Courtney,
Okay.
Stacy and Jackie have been very helpful. We just need to make sure that you understand why we're asking for that.
Okay.
I wanted to, they're doing what they can. I just want to make sure you understand the need.
Good.
One
Can
thing
I-
that, go ahead.
I want to go back to the October spreadsheet, and I just want to say that all the data that you put together, I think is your starting point for the conversations. I wouldn't be afraid to put the numbers out there because that is a good starting point
Yeah.
to filling the gap. And you're not going to know unless you at least ask.
I appreciate you looking at that. So thank you. Casey and I spent a lot of time on it. It's information obviously that we needed to have. And obviously it'll be helpful in when we come to the table with them to discuss that. But we honestly just needed to better understand the numbers ourselves. So I'm glad that you had an opportunity to look at that.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're over halfway there just with
Yeah.
the. And not all your blanks were filled in. so,
Right.
Right.
It's a good starting point.
With that, like, yeah, this is, I mean, you're $30,000 rough math. That's a good starting point. We have the high school and the college that use it, right? But then
Right.
we also have a swim team with
Yes.
the Wellness Campus.
That's one of the next
They cover their own
conversations.
costs with that swim team.
Go ahead and go to that conversation. So I'm not gonna say anything that hasn't already been shared with others. I've shared the staff, I shared it with the swim team. I've shared it with the booster parents just at a meeting last week. When we transitioned the swim team, and I kind of feel like a broken record when I say these things, but we did not know what we needed to know. We were not operating and managing the competition swim team. There was an outcry for the swim team to continue, so we figured it out. Again, long-term, that is currently under me. That is not something that I need to continue. I have weigh other responsibilities that really truly need my attention. I was happy to be a part of that and glad that we were able to continue it. We didn't know what we didn't know. As far as the expense goes, there are lots of expenses that are tied to it. There is also membership that's tied to it. I think it's too soon to make a decision one way or another if it's something that with more attention, more intentionality, more time, more focus. I think that there's definitely potential there. There's potential for growth. Unfortunately, because we have 3 competition swim teams, they are all a bit fixed as far as the ability for them to grow their programming is going to be very challenging. We only have the 8 swim lanes that they can swim in. So as they grow their teams, they can't grow their space. We are not going to allow the partners to extend the hours of usage that they have, especially not without some monetary, support, because anytime we take the pool away from members, that impacts our membership. Same with the turtles. When we rolled out the turtles, the first year we opened it up, it was actually at capacity. We've been running the turtle team successfully, despite of the fact that the structure is not there. Like, we have incredible coaches, but they're all Simpson College competitive swimmers themselves. They're part-time coaches. There is not a head coach that's a full-time person. Like I said, the structure of that is under me. We have identified a staff person to be the administrative support for that, to handle all of the registrations, the setting up for meets, all that there's a lot that goes along with that we had not been prepared for, that we had not taken care of before, that we are doing. I think that while it was great that we started it, it's somewhat of a disservice to the program now because we can't help it grow. So my recommendation would be for, to plan to transition the turtle team to an independent club, ideally by fiscal 27. I've shared that with the boosters. I've shared that with the coaches, everybody's understanding of the situation. It doesn't necessarily need to be that way, but without additional staffing, and that's not going to be my priority staffing. Obviously, with all the other needs that we need in the building, that while I love that we have the youth programming there, and there may be potential for dollars from the programming and the membership that's tied to it, I can't, we can't do everything. We really need to focus on what's in what's important and what we can do. The booster club parents are in place. They could potentially take over the operation. And again, I think that the transition is necessary in order for the program to grow and to open up my capacity as well.
So if I read between the lines correctly, what you're telling us is that the money that it costs to run that program is not recouped by, we're not covering our costs in that particular
At
program.
this point, in order to add enough swimmers to do that, we would need to also spend more dollars
Okay.
and put more support towards that, more resources towards that. And it's not a deliverable of the actual wellness campus.
I understand that. So what I'm getting to though is the booster club or that group or parents it's not paying its way. That's where I'm headed with that. And so I don't want to get a lot of calls from parents with swim kids here, but the bottom
I'll
line
get them
is,
first.
yeah. But the bottom line is, I mean, Josh has got a son in sports. Ron has had one in sports. He graduated, and I know Steve does as well. I know you guys pay lots of money for some of those things you do, whether it's soccer, baseball, softball, football, whatever the case is. There's volleyball. And frankly and honestly, that's one of the things that we've talked about as a collective group here. And I hope I've shared this with you, but we have to start covering the costs of the things that we provide and know what those costs truly are. And so if we're spending thousands of dollars every year on things that's not, they're not covering their costs, then they need to step up and pony up, I guess is what I'm kind of getting to. I don't like to be that blunt, but that's really the reality of it. So
Well,
you're
and-
talking about 27, there's you're gonna ask to be done, and that's fine, but then they're gonna have to cover the cost of that. I mean, they're gonna pick that cost up, is that right?
How, I mean, obviously, then that would require them to be a rental for us if they were gonna utilize the pool.
Yeah. And that's where you're headed, right? I mean, technically, yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
And so they're gonna have to provide
And it's
staff.
not uncommon for clubs
No,
to be athletic competition teams. I know when we were transitioning over and I was trying to figure out how do we do this, I asked Doug and Doug was like, we got rid of competition a long time ago. And I'm like, oh, great.
well, and that's,
So,
that's,
And I, again, it's a great program. We have incredible coaches. We have incredible swim families. And,
right.
it breaks my heart to have to say this in some ways, but also it's best for them. It's best for us.
Exactly. And that's what we think from the council perspective is trying to move forward is that everybody needs to pick up their costs, whether it's a fee for community development for something that they're doing or
Right.
swim team, one of the two. And so,
And to that point, we are reevaluating our programming and what the true cost is.
Right.
What expenses we are indirect and direct.
right. And I don't know if even in the year or two, you're gonna go before you say, okay, you're gonna have to be an independent group. If they can find a way to pick up some of the additional costs too, to help you out and get you back into that position where it's not an expense as much to the city. And so that's another thought.
Do you have the authority to disband that, or do you need?
I started it, I guess.
I would.
I don't
I would
know.
assume that it's your, as
Yeah.
the director, it's your ability, you don't need anything from us.
I don't know, I guess. Do I need to ask legal on that?
No,
Yeah, Okay.
it's your baby.
okay. Okay, so there's that, and then I was kind of quickly looking through my notes, and I think that we've actually in just conversation, which thank you for the dialogue, that it actually means a lot, and just feels good to just be able to share and hear your interest. But I want to go back to this staffing structure thing, because I cannot stress the importance of it enough. A big concern of mine and our leadership teams is that we have a lack of succession planning. And it's a significant risk for the leadership. We have Casey, who's the aquatics director, who's been at the campus the full time. We have Diane, who's the membership director, and myself. We've all been there since the facility opened. I don't know how Diane does all the things that Diane does. Most of the stuff that she's doing now was a result of the transition that was somebody else's job that none of us did. When Casey goes out, I can't fix the pool. I can do my best and she leaves me notes, but I can, manage the people and take care of those things and make phone calls, but all the stuff that she knows stays with her. There is nobody underneath her. There is nobody underneath Diane. My role, they don't know all the things that I do in my role. There isn't any structure that supports any, it's somewhat sad, but we don't have an opportunity for people to be promoted up or move up. Everybody's just very kind of stagnant and stuck. And it causes anxiety and stress. Recently, we've had illnesses that have impacted all of us and everybody has been out significantly back to back, and it brought attention to this deficiency, and it's a concern. So, if any of us are out for more than 2 days, we pay for it because there is a buckle and there's no backup.
And we paid a lot of money to do the staffing studies, and I think this is something that maybe Courtney should be in on the discussion for, but we really do need to have some kind of structure and restructuring put in place
Great.
for that
Definitely need
exact
that.
reason.
We know that. We have ideas for it. Obviously, there's, expenses tied to that too. So it's a priority for me. I'd like it to be a priority that's understood. There is definitely an importance to that.
I think that goes back, and again, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but I think if you can let Wade and Doug know, and you've done a good job here with this, and they writing notes, I see them writing notes, so. I think if those kinds of things are put into your CIP and those kinds of things are continually discussed, I kind of get the feeling, if I'm not mistaken here, and correct me if I'm wrong, you five, but I think we're trying to put you into a group with these folks that are gonna make some decisions, Doug and Wade and the other Doug,
Okay,
and get some decisions made. And visit us in a couple of weeks or another 3 weeks or whatever the case would be, I guess. I don't know. That's kind of my thinking.
well,
I want to
and-
get an update from Wade
Thank
in
you.
one of our council meetings. Am I wrong on that? I mean,
No, but I just want to say, I think that's why Heather's here tonight, is
Right.
because she needed that direction. from
Exactly,
us, And
exactly.
she needed someone to actually hear what she has been dealing
I
with,
don't
so.
disagree with you. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing. Thank you for providing that direction. I do know what I know what I need to do. And I have started the 501c3 conversation, have the communication out as far as the 28E. I did meet with Doug and not Doug and Sportsman Solutions to start the sponsorship at the IWC also. So we are definitely doing what we need to as far as pursuing any opportunities for revenues. So while there are challenges, there are definitely solutions. You had mentioned coming back. One thing that I would like to say is like the transparency and the communication is very important for me, very important for the team. It's been a really rough 18 months getting over, not really having clear understanding, clear direction. And that is after years of being part of the association. And so moving forward, is it possible either to just have a couple, I don't necessarily need full council's attention all the time. If there is either council representation that wants to meet, so I can, I mean, I want to be efficient with everybody's time. If you all want to hear from me regularly, I'm more than happy to come. But if there's another way that we can do this, at least in this interim time until we actually finish this unfinished business that needs to be taken care of, I don't want to just show up and then go, oh, hey, and then be back another 3 months.
Yeah.
I really would love to have some ongoing check-in with council as well. So I don't know if there's any volunteers or whatever, but you can figure that out. But I think that would be beneficial for me and for council.
Yeah, I'm willing.
Okay, thank you.
I would not only pause on that from just my perspective is, again, right now we're talking about the big things we need to do to help you be successful, right?
Yeah.
Just to backtrack, have all night. Don't think it's all gonna be solved by
Oh, no.
increasing memberships, or
Right.
charging more.
Okay.
I'm glad you're looking at costs as hard as it is, like the swim club and sponsorships, all that stuff. Everything should be on the table, no sacred
Right.
cows. This is where we're at. I just wonder if, as we're working through all the things that we're working through, if there wouldn't be benefit in one more meeting where there's the ability to have consensus before we break it off into a smaller, just so we can continue to move quickly and
Yeah,
efficiently.
it was just a suggestion.
No, no,
You
I
obviously
think
make your
it
decision.
worked.
Yes.
Yes, signed, I'll be up, I'm out. But
He has
He's been
background
on the steering
information.
committee,
He was
he's
on the
got all
steering
the
committee, a
info.
great representative. Yes.
So they don't need me home.
yeah, that's fine. But my only suggestion would be like maybe, and Wade, after you dive into this, because your schedule's pretty open, send a recommendation, whether it's in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, just come back and have another touch base like this in the study session. I want to make sure that we're moving efficiently for the benefit of your group, but also for the benefit of our budget and our 16,000 other people. We have to take this all very seriously for all parties involved here.
Thank you.
Right,
I
I know.
will speak on behalf of the IWC staff and the IWC members and thank you for that.
I'm one of them.
Thank you.
Thank you for speaking.
Yes.
for me, Heather.
Yes.
I do want to mention to the article that was sent to us by a member.
Okay.
That the wellness campus was mentioned. We were named one of the top 7 cities to retire in the United States by worldatlas.com.
Sure.
And the wellness campus was a part of the reason.
Aw, we appreciate that. You know, that is our strongest membership type, so
Yeah.
I feel that. Yes, we love our members and we love our seniors. Like, yeah, it's definitely a community and we wouldn't be the community we are without them.
So that was very nice.
I want to go back to the 501c or 3C again. So just so I know what's going on, there's a meeting on coming Wednesday, right? Is it this Wednesday?
Yes.
And what's going to happen at that Wednesday meeting so that we can get this 501(c) rolling for
Well, I
IWC?
can't answer that. Doug can. I just have a meeting scheduled with Todd Kilcoff
Okay.
for him to even explain to me how this all works.
Does Doug, do you need anything from us so that we can get the thing going on
No,
Wednesday?
It's one of the things that we've wanted to do for a long time. Talk through adding the wellness campus.
Okay,
Originally, the Community Foundation helped fundraise for the wellness campus.
so you can move forward without us then.
It's 4:30 Wednesday.
Here in the afternoon.
I just-
Is voting to allow us?
We can't.
Are they just voting to allow the wellness campus in?
Well, the Community Foundation is funding source for whatever community group that would want to use it. So like I say, it's KIB, Park Friends, Cemetery Committee. I'm missing some. Park Friends, there's a few. And all they have to do is have a member on the board and pay a small administrative fee. It's a couple $100 a year for the accounting, that kind of thing. And they will be their fiscal agent, run all their funds, run endowments, the opportunity for people to put endowments into that are specifically for Wellness Campus. Any donations would be specifically for Wellness Campus, like Park Friends, donate to Park Friends, it goes to the parks. They donate it to Buxton Endowment, it goes for Buxton Park, so on and so forth.
And you're already on the board.
Not
so-
on the board, city,
Oh, you're not.
city staff are not on the board.
Okay. So who would represent the wellness campus on?
They would need to find a
A representative.
representative.
Your husband available?
Yeah, he would love that. Are you trying to get me divorced?
Where's the meeting at? 4:30, where?
Activity Center.
Maybe center?
Yep.
If anybody,
Oh, yeah. Any volunteers?
What's any hands going up back there?
Oh, I'll find
Ideal-
somebody.
Ideally, could someone who was a previous member of the board,
Absolutely, or just a member of the IWC.
I don't have anything else, do you?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got another question. Is it okay if I go?
Yeah.
So last council meeting, Heather, I was going through the claims and there was a $4,000 snow removal fee for for one snow. And it kind of surprised me a little bit. I was surprised that the city themselves is not removing your snow. So obviously that affects your budget. Luckily, it's been how much of a snow
Yeah,
year, right?
Right. We've been fortunate.
So do you budget for snow removal?
Yes,
You do? Okay.
yes. Our
And
best.
how much do you budget for?
I'd have to look to, I can't remember exactly the number that we budgeted for that. We've had the same provider. When we transitioned over, I wasn't here at the meeting, but I did hear, and Doug had said, the city currently doesn't have the resources in order to do that with our hours. We're open the 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. and then they swoop back through. The company that we've been working with has done a really great job and done it since we opened and has been very fair as far as kind of holding our rate and stuff like that. But yeah, we budget for it based on every season. They also take care of our mowing. And
So that's
we do
outside of the
everything.
Woosley contract? Your mowing's outside of the Woosley?
Correct. We have separate.
It's another thing we could, if we're bidding out all the city facilities, that's another, I don't know, we're looking for efficiencies, right?
Yeah.
Financially
No,
and
I know. I
would-
I think I had mentioned, that and
I'm
whatever
not trying
vendors.
to-
Yeah.
put a landscaping company out of business here, but And if we can find a way for city staff to clear our own city snow, I mean, they're doing it at, I'm guessing Park and Recs, and they're doing it, here at
Library.
City Hall and in the library as well. It just seems.
Yeah. I think it's,
don't know,
I
it
think,
just
I think
seems
the
odd.
uniqueness is just right now that because we are, the hours that the facility is open is outside of maybe what their scope is.
I don't want to talk for Doug, but I think if he said, said he, in the
Yeah.
last, they don't have the equipment.
Yeah.
So
It is a big
I think it would
facility.
make some sense for us.
Forget staff. It
Huh?
already takes us 12 hours.
Right,
to move
Right,
snow.
right. And
So-
I would think that honestly, let's look at maybe one of our other departments that removes snow maybe and talk with them about how we can do that and see if we can
Yeah,
get.
you're talking like streets, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not saying Park and Rec should do it.
That is.
I'm saying city, yeah, like our streets department. I mean, they surely have excavator.
And there can be,
Plow on the front or a skid loader with a plow. I'm just, I don't know. I find it, a little baffling why Heather has to pay for her own snow removal and
Right.
city staff that
Um,
moves snow,
You
so.
have to remember the streets come first.
right.
We only have so much equipment and so many people that can do that. I shouldn't answer for AP, but that's the
Yeah.
honest truth there. Is that's why Parks and Rec does parking lots. Because the street department needs to focus on the streets.
And being membership based, obviously, we want to ensure that that is taken care of before the building opens and throughout the
Good
day.
points. Good point.
So without getting super far into the weeds here, but so for Park and Rec, I mean, you guys handle those snow removal for the library and everywhere else.
The square, all the parking lots around the square, city hall, fire station, police. All those
So-
things are going on at the same time.
Essentially, like, do you have seasonal employees that you hire for summer, seasonal for, no?
Just our full-time staff.
So to add one facility, I mean, is it a whole nother staff person you would have to have?
Very large facility, that would be the challenge, I would think, is just the amount of time it would take to throw that much snow.
It is.
We wouldn't be, it would take a couple hours just to do one sweep. And we're already on a 12-hour shift.
It's
Well,
not just
I'm
the
just-
parking lot, it's all the sidewalks.
I guess
around.
I'm trying to think longevity. I mean, if she's paying for someone to plow throughout the winter, $4,000 per plow. I mean,
Yeah,
that
Jackie just
that
looked it up.
adds
We
up
budgeted for
very
40,000.
quickly.
40,000 for the snow removal and the.
So essentially, I mean, couldn't that possibly help pay for another actual full-time position? And then they would also handle the snow and mowing?
Buy the equipment and trucks and everything too on top of that.
And snow only happens occasionally. We're gonna do the rest of the 30 hours.
Big storm drains.
I mean, I mean, couldn't we
Well,
have a floating position maybe that's, I'm, like I said, I don't wanna get too far into the weeds, but I just think that's something that maybe should be looked at is how can we maybe find a person who could fit into some of those positions throughout the year where needed? I mean, I know you can get a used plow for not a whole lot. And we use just a pickup and a plow to do several large properties that I manage. So it's possible to do it without having,
I'm gonna make a suggestion that maybe, again, not to pile more on, but Doug, Wade, Heather. Maybe help come up with some, if there's no solution, there's no solution, but if there is a
Right.
solution, can we put it into bids when we do all of our parks?
That's what I was gonna say,
Bid our
Steve.
Parks and do it that way, or what can we do? Let them handle that. That's staff responsibility. I think they can help us. Maybe.
Just to chime in, when we were reviewing the budget, Heather did indicate that she was gonna look at possibly this mowing bids.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all.
Yeah, to your point, and Ron, to your point, like, in, 2 years when the bids come up for mowing again, include IWC in the bids, maybe you include snow removal in there too, because, a lot of those guys do that in the winter, because they're not mowing yards. So, yeah, might be something that we can look at there as opposed to doing what's being done, so.
Certainly.
I just still I don't think it should be something that comes out of Heather's operational budget. As a city entity though, that's my.
They're just gonna have a hard time getting somebody full-time at 40K. That's what the budget is. Are you gonna find a part-time or a full-time person for $40,000 to mow the IWC and move the snow? No.
I'll be retired in a year.
All right.
I was gonna say.
We got a solution in 8 years.
We
Um,
don't pay that much for one of ours, so.
so,
So I guess the only question I really have, not to interrupt everybody here, but maybe let Wade make a decision when he brings it back to a study session. Would that be okay, Wade? Yeah, okay. Brings Heather back and brings staff back.
Heather, how quickly do you want that? I know that's a on the spot question. When do you want to come back for like another study session? I mean, we might as well just talk about it now. We're all here, right?
When does budget need to be filed? For that,
First meeting in March.
perfect. If it fits into the schedule.
Let Wade have the final decision. That would be my only suggestion.
I don't know what we have to talk about. Yeah, that'd be the challenge. Shoot for the first week of March.
Yeah.
You guys figure it out. I don't know if we're talking about.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, folks, for coming. Yes.
So I think you have to make a
Would it be
correction.
possible for me to address the council real quick? Would that be out of line? If it is, it is. If not, it's not.
I say go for it,
Okay.
right?
I just wanted to, one of the questions that Ron had was, how does the staff feel disrespected? I had, as a former member of the trustees, I had a member of, that has close ties to Parks and Rec, ask me for a meeting. And when they asked me for the meeting, one of the questions that they had is, why is Heather still the director there? And what do they actually do? And it was not a legit question. It was Heather didn't deserve the position. It was a very derogatory question. And they did not believe that that was even a necessary position. They thought, why couldn't Doug just take the position? And that we were wasting all of our time having Heather at this position, in that spot, and most of the staff, they thought Parks and Rec could just handle this position, this whole facility. And I don't know where the sentiment came from, but I know that squashing that comes from the top down. And I don't believe that was happening. They have been a member, you know, I say we, because I'm a member of the Wellness Center, have been part of the city for a year and a half. And I don't believe there was any attempt to squash that type of talk. And so I think there is a serious sentiment in the city that needs to be addressed. And I think that is a direct answer to your question, Ron, is that there is serious resentment towards the Wellness Center. And it is very directly, you know, aimed at and pointedly aimed at the employees of the Wellness Center. So I think that needs to get squashed from the top down. I won't go into incidents, but I have heard incidents that are very aggressive towards the staff. And so it just, that needs to be addressed from, you know, whether it's the city manager's position or from Doug as the head of Parks and Rec, or from you guys, that needs to get addressed and get squashed. And that is a major part of the isolation that the Wellness Center feels. So, and I have talked to at least a couple of the full-time staff at the Wellness Center, and they are rather hurt by the attitude that they get from the city. So that's a serious thing. Should be taken care of. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So next up on our agenda is Vision 2030 discussion. So before we go into that, anybody need to pause for like a bathroom break? Because Jackie, Jason, we're gonna road trip it to Regions. So
I'd like a break.
Melissa needs a quick break, so we'll take 5. That's enough. And then the public meeting's still open. So we're gonna walk over to Regions Bank for everybody to tour so that when we talk Vision 2030, we, you know, have an idea of what that building has to offer and be open to discussions. So
Anybody can join us.
anybody is welcome to join us on a road trip. Go first.
And so thank you all for
you all.
meeting. You guys are going over there?
We'll be coming back.
Yeah, we will be coming back here after the tour of regions. So we will be back in here.
Oh.